Good morning and welcome to Sunday Coffee. Joining, per usual, the future mayor of Ann Arbor, the future governor of Virginia, is TK Eppley. Today, we're going to talk about leading with gratitude and why being gracious is so important in leadership. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is EchelonOrchid.
Guess who's back?
All right. Good morning, TK. How are you, sir?
Oh, living the dream. Living the dream. At least so far I am.
Yeah, hopefully I don't have too many audio issues today. Seems like it's always something that doesn't like
Doesn't like whatever's happening. It's always something, but
yeah, that is true. Eventually, also I'm going to just actually run Cat 6 cable to the cable modem so I don't have to deal with wireless, and it just makes it for an overall better experience when it's not on wireless. And I'll get a better TV so we can see the actual each individual gray hair in your beard. Exactly, but uh so anyway, today when I know this is one of your favorite topics. You talked about it, at least when we were in person and together, being, giving thanks, gratitude, leading with gratitude, and I think a lot of people tend to just forget the very simple, not just thank you, but being specific about what you're thanking them for. Well, basically everyone's young to you. Yeah, it's. I think it goes a long way. I mean, well, everyone. I don't know of anyone that hates money. Um, if you pay people uh, a good wage, that's not like, I remember there was someone like, hey, well, I pay you every day, so that's thanks enough. Well, no, I mean, I yeah, yeah, no, that's the aspect of, yeah, sure, I'm getting paid, and if you're paying people appropriately, then a bonus, so to speak, is not necessarily, hey, thanks. I mean, that's just what you should be doing anyway. But it's ensuring that you are letting them know, like, look, I tell my people all the time, like, you all make me look really good. Right. Yeah, we got a person saying they can't hear you. So I wonder if I plugged in the right cable. Who knows? They probably, and it's Stony. He just happens to think that I'm always suppressing you. Yeah. But, interesting in that. Oh, wait a minute. So I hear you just fine, but the people can't. Let's see. One of these days, I'll actually get this thing figured out, maybe. Well, he should be used to that. Let's see if what this does. Okay. Well, we'll figure it out at some point. Maybe. Where? Output. Oh. All right, let's get it. We'll get a sound check now, TK. See how you sound now. Stoney will tell us. Well, I'm okay with that. I can do this. All right, Stoney, how are we sounding here now? True. But we'll see how this winds up doing. Nope, he's saying Still can't hear you. All right. That output saying still no. Audio. The mic is the speaker. Let's try. All right, TK, let's try this again.
All right, very well then.
Might as well just go ahead and say the alphabet.
or go with the Wayne's World. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Stony is still saying no. Can't hear you. I wonder what's changed. Fuck, I have no idea.
You can enhance the audio after the fact, correct?
Not really. Let's do it live. I don't. Oh wait, he's saying he can hear you now.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Is that a true statement there, Stony? You can now hear him.
Yep, you said we're good.
All right. No idea what I just did, but hopefully it doesn't change. I just started. Oh, let's try this. Let's try that. You know.
Take a picture of it, whatever it is, so we do it again.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what I did there, but I'll definitely have to do that. Let's see. Going to here. Nothing changes there. Okay. And of course, it looks like we've got about a foot of snow on the ground.
Nice.
And it looks like just lost the Wi-Fi connection. So it's just one of those days today.
It is an electronic Sunday.
Yeah, it is. I need to get Stony out here just so that way he can wire all my stuff for me.
That's a good use of this. That's a good use of his time.
I'll pay him in some good liquor, not that stuff that he uses down south.
half whiskey, half bathtub cleaner.
Yeah. Hey, Stony, you got TK saying that about your product now too. So you know how good that winds up being.
I just like listening to both of you go back and forth at each other about who makes better off the table whiskey.
Yeah. All right, since I lost Wi-Fi, I got to reset the Google Cast up here. Hold on. But go ahead and keep talking about your nice, lovely, being giving thanks.
We're gonna wait for Dan, folks. He really does have a doctorate in cybersecurity, folks, even though you might not believe it. I've seen the piece of paper.
And now that we should be good to go now.
All right, very cool.
But now that we've got the distillery up and running, I can now get back to focusing on building out the studio properly. Since now that we've got, let's see, we've got about 50 gallons of product amongst all the product lines.
Nice.
So it's enough for us to get out there and do a bunch of tastings. We can get some. We have a a distributor
Right.
coming in this week that that focuses on just like small Indiana brands. So we'll see what kind of reach that they have. And we got some meetings with a couple of restaurant owners, not this coming week, but the week after. So that's pretty exciting because they're like, look, we'd like to buy local, and I'm like, perfect, because we like to sell.
Yeah.
The idea
Kinda
really
works out.
is
It
for
works
some
out
of them. Yeah, we just want to know like how well, like, do they really like? We think that especially if they're a restaurant owner or the distributor, they're not going to buy it if they don't think it's good. I think the hard sell for us is going to be like, our regular like white rum, because like that, it's just for the most part it's more expensive than just buying Captain Morgan.
Yeah.
And especially when you don't really drink white rum by itself, you're always mixing it. So
Correct. And if you aren't mixing it, we got to talk about the 12-step program you need to be in.
yeah. Now, when we get to our aged rum, that's a little bit different. You may not want to, you may not want to do that, but it's more of a sipping rum at that point than,
Yeah.
because we're going to be aging it in a used Merlot barrel.
Oh, very cool.
That we're hoping to get from we're hoping to pick that up next weekend from a local winery here, which they actually make really good.
Oh, very cool.
They're pretty close to the to Lake Michigan, so they're probably only a couple miles from Lake Michigan. So for us, it's like about
Dan, you're
30-minute drive.
you're cutting in and out again, Dan.
I am. Well, it's probably the Wi-Fi connection.
Yes.
Or is that what is Stoney saying that, or you're just saying that?
No, I'm saying that.
Well, at least it wouldn't be what they hear. It's only only what you'd be hearing. So it's probably the Wi-Fi connection on here. We may be having a short episode today with all the live technical difficulties at the moment. I need like a full-time sound engineer.
Yeah, you do.
Anyway, getting back to our topic at hand, when do you think you started to learn to just truly give thanks?
I'm going to say
Well, just lost the Wi-Fi connection again.
go put as many type A apex predators in a room as you want, and then tell them all to be nice to each other, right? And how we determine being nice to each other is different than the rest of the planet, And so probably a couple years after I retired, I don't like, but it's not like it was when I was 25, right? And I don't think that. I think you have to have lived life. You have to have had people treat you poorly. All those things that kind of make you wake up at some point when you're in your 30s or 40s and say, I've got to change how I do business so that I can move forward in my life and be successful, not just at work, but in relationships and raising kids and everything else, right? We've talked about this a lot. With the amount of basketball my daughter plays, you get to see a lot of lack of gratitude in that, and some of it is parents look at basketball as a meal ticket, so they don't have to pay for college. They were, metaphorically, they were cut from the JV team when they were in high school, and they're living their life through their child. And you see a lot of, when I look at the basketball court, for example, I have an unbelievable sense of gratefulness of the skill set, not necessarily basketball, that all of the girls on the court are getting, right? They're going to be leaders, whether they realize it or not. For the rest of their life, they're going to be leaders because they've learned to look left and right and go, hey, do I need help, or is it my turn to help somebody? Right. And most of the problems that emanate inside a gym are parent initiated. They're not child initiated. Right. And, I'll give you an example. And it's a complete lack of gratitude. And is the head coach of my daughter's basketball team is in his early 70s. He's got about 1,000 wins, multiple state championships, and he's just a really good dude. And he has an assistant that is another really great guy that one day is going to carry on the legacy and take over with him. And earlier this year, some of the parents, whether it was because they felt their daughter wasn't getting playing time, they didn't like the offense they ran, all this stuff that has nothing to do with the kids being great. And they started chirping, and one or two of them reached out to the head coach and said, hey, it's probably time for you to go. The parents, it's one of the things like, hey, it's your opinion, and then you pasted it over the rest of the adult group and said, hey, the parents. Well, he had a meeting with the parents, and it was like gut wrenching because everybody in the room kind of knew who started, who initiated this, right? And it was a parent that just can't be grateful, right? Grateful for the opportunity that their child has, grateful for the group of young women that she gets to be a part of, and the great things that they're going to do later in their life, right? Everything. It's that concept. Some people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. And I think gratitude is about value. Thankfulness is about price. Right? You thank somebody when they bring your check. Are you grateful for the fact that they did the one thing to help sustain life, which is feed you? Maybe, maybe not. Right? But I think that, there's thankfulness and gratitude are on the same path. It's just you have to be thankful for people before you can be grateful to people. And I was thinking about this yesterday that the head coaches said, "Hey, I'm going to step down next year," and it's like you've been coaching basketball for the better part of 50 years, 51 years actually, because the girls have shirts that have 51 on them or 50 from last year, and and for me, it's just a complete lack of gratitude for the adults that he feels he has to go out of his coaching career this way, right? And I think that's when you look at it, and it's here's the thing: if you've got a problem with somebody, go talk to them. Right? And I have no problem if that one parent in particular wanted to go to the coaches and say, hey, I think X, Y, and Z is wrong. I think you're misusing my daughter. I think this, right? And there's always parents that are chirping and call, hey, you need to get my daughter in the game more and everything like that. And it's usually the parents whose children can't dribble and walk at the same time, right? But to then overlay it on all the parents on the team and say, well, quite a few of the parents. Well, who are they? Everybody raise your hand who did it, right? But for the rest of us, it is how have you helped to shape the children in a better light? And how can I be grateful for all the time you give? Because I don't know what a high school coach part-time gets paid, but it's not a lot. They're not doing it because they're choosing their financial lifestyle. They're doing it because they love coaching basketball and they love the kids.
Yeah.
Right. You can't be grateful for that. I can't help you. Right. I don't know. It's like, what is I don't know who, what, where, when, why. Right. And I think in life, so many people walk around and saying thank you is hard for them. Up here, I eat out quite a bit. And it's amazing to me when the bill comes to people that, people aren't like, thank you. Hey, I appreciate everything you've done for me. Something like that. Right. And again, it's that, hey, I paid you. Right. That's that, that Mad Men line, I paid you. That's thanks enough. Well, I don't think it is. Right. Because, again, somebody comes in, they're serving you a meal, they're going to make a decent living, but they're not going to be independently wealthy because they're serving you food.
Right.
Right. And everything they do is about giving. right? And I think as much as tipping, because the money's important, but as much as tipping, I think to have a tipping lifestyle, right? To where everything you do is about saying, hey, you've made a small contribution to my life today, and I'm appreciative of it.
Well, I think it's important. And I feel better when I am actually giving gratitude, right?
Oh yeah,
I actually feel there's so many people that they wake up Monday morning and they're like, oh, it's Monday, and I'm like, well, to me, Monday's just another day of the week, but
no doubt.
uh, but for those people, I'm like, well, they're probably not truly being thanked enough in their life, and they probably also have very little that they're thankful for. But they're like, wow, I'm really lucky that I have these things in my life, or whatever it might be, and
Right.
that's just a sad way to go through life. Because then I go, well, what are you going to do when you retire? Like, I just go like, because I think those people that they don't know what their purpose is, and because of
Right.
that, Monday is when they wake up to go to work in the morning on that Monday morning, because they don't really have a purpose. They're just collecting a paycheck. So if they, I wouldn't. For me, I don't do things for other people, so to speak. Like when I I'm doing something for myself first. So I'm trying to be what I want to be 5 years from now, and hopefully other people will recognize that. And I do know that in many ways, other people are benefiting from it, and I'm glad they're in my life that they get to benefit from those things. But
Yeah.
I don't. My purpose is my purpose, and I know what it is. So I just keep going down that path. I think that's the first part: is fix yourself first. What are you thankful for? And then other people will start being thankful to you, because you're now, you have things that you can get some real joy out of.
I think it's the concept of I have to do this or I get to do this.
Yeah.
Right. And if you start adopting the I get to do this lifestyle, you don't, when you say I have to do it, it means somebody's taking something away from you in order to do it, or life is extracting from you. I get to do it means you're living a life of abundance and gratitude, and that you're walking in to make things better.
Yeah. And it's a big, I think it's a big, it's a paradigm shift that people can get to. And I think I'm trying to think of what's the heliotropic effect.
Yeah.
So if there really is, if you just try to smile more, other people in response will smile. That is,
Yeah.
and you actually will then start to feel it. That's really all it takes. Smile.
If you yawn more, people will yawn.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's a great video out, and it's a puppy. He's sitting there looking at his owner, and the owner yawns, and like 2 seconds later, the puppy yawns.
That's pretty funny.
Right. I mean, that's just that. It applies. It doesn't just apply to humans, right? It applies against species.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. But I think that's a big thing as to what I'd really like to see more people do. It's those small little wins.
Yeah. Well, I think every day, like, you either something positive happens in your life every day of the week, whether you believe it or not. Right. And usually what I think the biggest win is when something extremely adverse comes into your life and you have to overcome it. Right. And I'm going to tell you, straight up, I'm not the best some days at that. But when you get through that, and then you look back on it and go, okay, I won't make that mistake again. Now I'm a better, all those things. Right. It doesn't mean you forget about it, and it doesn't mean you forgive everybody about it, right? It just means that you're like, okay, that was really bad, or that sucked, or whatever, and now I'm past it. And frankly, some days it also helps you to file people in the correct filing drawer for whether or not what level of effort you're going to put into their lives.
Very true. This is, it's probably I mean, I don't know that it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel it's a good thing. I just don't want to be around people that are just negative all the time and aren't themselves aren't thankful for what they have and the others that are around them. I just like are and there's I wouldn't say I just will write them off per se, but I certainly don't make them a part of like any of my circles. Um, but I certainly give them many opportunities to see something different. It's their choice, and so, but I do see a direct correlation with people who are who are top performers are much happier people, and they are very gracious in everything that they are doing.
Right.
And the people who are grumpy all the time are not typically top performers. I can't think of anyone that's grumpy. It's also a top performer. I can't think of anyone like that.
Right.
I see it being, a direct correlation. And I think they may not ever be able to be a top performer. I mean, maybe that's entirely up to them, but they could probably get out of being poor performers if they just started being a little bit more thankful and trying to be happy.
Right. I would say, there's some people that are just, they're obtuse in a certain way daily. And but I think a lot of it is, we all know people that generally are happy, nice, like they're agreeable human beings. And then all of a sudden they get to the point where they're not. Right. And I think sometimes people put them at arm's length, but they don't want to go, okay, what's going on? Right. And as a leader, those little things you can start to see the changes in people and things like that is like, part of that gratitude for me is walking up to them and going, hey, is everything okay? Right. Or if it's me, being able to talk to somebody that's not going to be judgmental or defensive and saying, all right, I'm just trying to vent right now. I need to get it off my chest. I need somebody to think, because this whole concept that you can be grateful and, Captain Happy every day of the week, it's not realistic, right? Because a whole multitude of things creep into people's lives and stuff like that. But I think part of gratitude is when you're a 10 and somebody else is a 2, it's your job to get both of you to be at least a 5 or a 6, right? And vice versa. Right? And I think that's it's part of learning the experience of team is and I'll give you a good example. In SEAL training, you could always tell who played team sports, and you could also always tell who did individual activities like swimming, gymnastics, those kind of things, right? Cross country. The folks that played team sports, when it started to suck, if they were down, they would look around for somebody to help them and expect it, right? And when they were up, they would look for somebody to help, right? Whereas folks that participated in individual activity athletics would go into themselves. Now, I think both skills are important because some days you got to pull yourself up by your own bootstrap, so to speak, your own jock strap, whatever floats it. But
Unless
there's
you're AOC, because evidently, she says you can't pull yourself up by your own bootstrap.
All right, hold on. All right, cool, I'm back. But I think you have to have a blend of that, right? And it's always interesting. I have a buddy of mine. He played football at Alabama, and we went through SEAL training together, and we literally could like sit there and look at folks and go, team sport guy, individual activity, right? And I think and not just because I did it, but the folks that do a little bit of both growing up, I think you're in a much better place because you get to a point where, hey, when it sucks, I can do some self triage in the moment, right? Because that's, if you're running cross country or swimming long distances, you start having doubts and like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Which is a life thing, right? I mean, how many days do you walk through life going, hey, I've got this all figured out and get out of my way, right? I think part of that, I get to do this and I have to do this mentality is when you say I get to do this, you're looking forward to those challenges and things you haven't learned yet, right? And things you haven't experienced. When you say I have to do it, you're basically worried about skin in your knees as you try to get over the hurdle, right? And those are, I think I've said this before. Like I want to show up at the finish line, sliding in, all beat up, and going, "Hey, look what I just did." Not like walking there in a wheelchair, grumpy about what happened, drooling on the trophy because I was alive longer than anybody else. That's when you start having that added in. And here's the thing: to say I don't get angry about things and to say I don't get pissed off would be probably the wildest of lies out there, right? But it doesn't mean that you can't recover, right? And I think that's part of being grateful is your ability to recover when you do find yourself getting crazy mad about things, or a thing is like, hey, how can I get myself out of this? And the thing is, you learn, like, is somebody that's in your life wanting to help you out? Are they always disagreeant with you when you say, I don't think something's right? Right. And if they are, that's probably not good either. Right. But you also need somebody in your life that says, stop. Right. You bitched about this long enough, move on. Right. And so how do we relate to that? And I think that other grateful people help grateful people. And for me, that's especially now, like we're kind of the group of folks that show up every day to help make the things that we do better. I don't know if I could be more grateful if I tried, right? Because there are a bunch of great folks that we have a great culture, right? And we're now, I've been doing this going on a year. We're at this company, we're fiercely defensive of the culture. And we understand as we get bigger, eventually we're going to hire somebody who's adverse to the culture. Right? I think we're not worried about hiring somebody who isn't knowledgeable on what we hire them to do, because that's the easy part. Right? We're worried about somebody that upsets the apple cart with the culture that we have. All right? Because a lot of what we do is cutting edge stuff. And so if we're not inventing it, we're looking at new ways to do things that are very nascent in industry. And things don't work. Batteries catch on fire. All of these things. And we don't get mad at each other. We don't like, hey, okay, that didn't work, right? Let's get around it and let's figure out how we're going to make it better tomorrow. And I think that keeping that culture alive as a leader, fostering that is probably going to be more important to overall success than anything that gets done technically.
I think that's at least to me, the real key is to what you said. You're going to have a setback. They're going to. If everything just worked perfectly every single time, one life would be boring, and what's our real purpose? But
right.
It's that real key to me is how can we just improve upon this a little bit?
Right.
And then tomorrow a little bit more. And this is one of the things that I tell all of my new hires, all of my people. I'm not asking to change the world. I'm asking for 2% growth month over month.
Right.
That's it, just 2%. And if you do improve 2%, that means in 1 year you've improved 26%. And I think if I can't remember the exact number, but I think it's like 44 months, you will have improved 100%. So a little bit less than 4 years. Is essentially what it comes down to. And that's, it builds, right? It's, hey, in 4 years, you could have gained 100% improvement from where you used to be. And that's a big reason why I'm always like, I'm competing with who I want to be 5 years from now.
Right.
Because I know that if I just keep doing this 2%, I'm going to win against myself in 5 years, because I would have done it in less than 4. Right. So that's,
right.
That's me competing with my future self constantly. I want to be better in 5 years. And part of that is I know I'm going to have months where I probably didn't have 2% growth in something.
Well, the great thing about that mindset is it puts you on a path of continual growth, because tomorrow, 5 years is a different day than it was today.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm never going to get there. Right. And I don't mean that in a negative way. It means I'm always striving to be there. And every day that there's a new day at the end of that 5 years. And that's who I want to compete with. I want to compete with the person that wants to compete.
Yeah.
And the minute you don't want to compete, that's when you got to sit down for a second and go, okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Because obviously this isn't working out for me right now. Right. And we've all been there. Right. Whether you feel bad for yourself, you're like, I don't want to, this is terrible. I don't want this. Like, hey, how do I get over what I'm doing and get back to the practice of gratitude and greatness?
And I think that competition, like, I enjoy competition. I mean, that's a big thing. And so even when it comes to, making our products, I don't have a problem. Like we had, with our tasting and jiu-jitsu event that we had last Tuesday, we had a competitor, show up. Perfect. Let us tell you how we do all this stuff.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't bother me in the least. Because, we could all be using the exact same ingredient, the exact same water, and the product is going to taste different. Because it's all about where you make the cuts. And I think that's a big reason why Stoney's stuff doesn't taste very good, because he's putting way too much heads in that corn liquor he's got down there. He's not making those cuts good.
We lost Dan.
Yeah, we lost it's definitely, network problems over here today in terms of the Wi-Fi. I don't know why. Some days it's fine, some days it's not. But
if you don't know, then a lot of America doesn't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, it's odd. Could just be one of those things which I know why this works. I just wish it didn't work this way.
Right.
Is that rebooting tends to solve a lot of problems. Because it just clears everything up. You're starting fresh.
Some would say that, the master key of rebooting is like, hold on, what's not actually functioning?
Yeah.
Hey, so what do you think about, kind of go off topic, I just brought it up while you were having network problems before, you didn't hear it. So I was reading an article yesterday that Ford says they're either going to have to significantly reduce production or shut down 8 plants because of the chip shortage.
What do I think about that?
Yeah.
Which part?
Well, just the whole, like, how we've just gotten so, upended with supply chain issues. I mean, I feel it every day of the week, right? Raspberry Pi normally costs $70, $80. I just paid $270 for 10 of them the other day. $270 a piece for 10 of them, right? And brokers are killing it. There's certain things we want to do that we can't do right now because we can't source the chips to do it and stuff like that. And what do you think is the kind of the time horizon before this gets cleared up?
Well, I think for the near future, it's not going to be any time in the near future, I don't believe. And I think what this is actually going to do is we're going to wind up as a world being in a much better position, because right now we have an over reliance on one country to where basically all the stuff's being made. And I think you're going to start being able to see other countries, I believe, possibly either in Africa or South America, where they can easily be making these chips as well. And so, if you and this is a big thing about China, in that over reliance on any one particular source of anything is bad. Right? We learned this in business, all the time. It's continuity of operations. What
Right.
happens if this thing fails? Where do I go? Well, we've been reliant upon one country, basically. Yes, I know they make some chips other places, but not in the quantity that we've been able to get out of China. So this is an opportunity for some other countries that if they want to be able to increase their GDP, start making components. You don't have to be the computer manufacturer. You just have to be the person that's making that one chip.
Yep. I think when you look at Apple, what they did a few years ago, and when the former CEO of Intel basically told Apple to go pack sand, because our CEO of Intel told Apple to go pack sand, that he wasn't going to use Intel chips. Them going to TSMC and effectively buying that. I mean, I know they heavily invest in it, but effectively buying it, because back when we were on Circle, they used to buy 15 million parts kits prepaid. And that's how they could really crunch their bomb, right? Is they would prepay for that. And Samsung was ostensibly doing the same thing. And then all of us small guys had to kind of wedge ourselves in the middle and hope we could get parts in Gorilla Glass on something that they were scraping everything off the table. But when you look at whether it's in their A chips in their cell phones or the M chips now in their laptops, they've significantly tied up their supply chain that they go, okay, we're not really worried about that, right? And I think I'm pretty sure Tim Cook doubled down early on and said, hey, don't slow down on the chip manufacturing, speed up, because we're not going to slow down. I'd be interested to know, and it's just something I don't pay attention to very much anymore, what the relationship is with Samsung and the Chinese chip manufacturers, because what's the easy way for Apple to really be significantly far ahead of them is Apple controls their own chip supply chain, whereas Samsung is, certainly on bended knee to a certain extent to what goes on in China.
Yeah, I don't know, but getting back to this, to when I think I think we're going to feel the effects for probably another 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I hear people say it's going to be a year, and I'm like you. I'm like, it can't just be a year.
Well,
because
it's already been over a year, right? So,
right, but you know what I mean. When people say that, when they say a year, it's like, okay. Aside from the fact, even if you're saying it's a year from today, right? I think that everybody's like, oh, this will bounce back. So nobody was credibly thinking about how to circumnavigate it, and it hasn't, to a certain extent, bounced back, and to a great extent hasn't bounced back. And now people are like, hey, now we got to think about it. Well, how long does it take you to stand up an alternate process to get what you need?
Well, I think what they're forgetting is that the demand hasn't stopped. Okay, so
right.
What happens is in maybe another year, I can fulfill what was ordered 2 years ago. But then I've got all of this buildup of another 2 years worth of demand because you've got other entrants into the market that require it. And so that's why I think it's at least 2 years. It wouldn't surprise me if it's 5, to be honest. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because that demand just keeps stacking, because it's not like people that currently, let's take a leased car as an example. A lot of people lease their cars. Maybe not today because the money's so cheap, but even still, most people don't keep a car for the full length of their loan. Well, in 3 years, a lease could be up. That means they're going to be looking to get into another car. Well, that car isn't there for them to get into.
Right.
And that's a simple way of looking at it from the car manufacturing. They're trying to fill orders of what happened, 18 months ago, and they can't. And they don't have enough chips that bounce back. When people's, because a lot of people do leases for 39 months, things like that. So I think that's why it won't surprise me if it's 5 years until it's back to the way it was. And that's why it's 5 years is a long time. This is a great opportunity for some countries that aren't, that have a low GDP, you can start making some stuff pretty quick. I mean, it doesn't matter how small your government is; they have enough money to build a plant and start producing stuff pretty quickly if they so choose to.
I think I think the bigger problem, especially with the U.S., right? I mean, not to talk about it, the bigger problem with the U.S. is, when we talk about all the cargo ships sitting out there, is for the past 20 years, plus or minus, Rotterdam as a port has been fully automated, right? Driverless cars, everything is completely automated. And there are a number of ports along the way. There's ports in Brazil that are fully automated, and as the world goes, they can 24/7 offload ships. The U.S., in particular, with the Democrats and their abject love of unions, have put in a position where, much like the steel industry in the 70s, where the union said, hey, we're not bringing robots in because we're not going to lose any employees. You can't fire. You can bring robots in, but you can't fire anybody. So instead of giving up 10% of their workforce, they gave up 100% of their workforce. And now, with things, there's a euphemism called the Japanese inspection, right? And so back in the day, if the Japanese wanted to pinch on the ship deliverers, they would basically just say, hey, we can't do it today. Well, if you've got lettuce or vegetables and stuff, you just let it sit out there long enough, and eventually it's a moot point. So you have to be beholden to what they're doing, right? How did we go immediately from being able to, as quickly as we can, get stuff in and off ships and out to the buying public, to not being able to do that, right?
I think part of it happened during the Trump administration, because I mean it's just not sound economic policy to be putting tariffs on all these things. I mean, we learned that whatever it was, like in the 1950s, and so when we started playing that game, well, it's a losing battle, and so I think that was a big part of it, because it's also, it's not like the other company is going to lose out; it's the people who have to buy.
Right.
We're not gonna make chips here in the United States. We're just not going to do it.
That's exactly that right there. If over time your actions have said we are not going to produce X, then why are you going to over tariff the country that produces X? Right? And we can have 10 shows on China and economically and socially how they behave and are they good or bad citizen in the world, right? But at the end of the day, they have said, hey, this is our place in the world, and this is what we're going to provide to the world. If you want to change that, figure out how to economically build chips, for example, in the US, right? The reason we don't build cell phones in the US is because we don't have the artisan labor to do it, right? Even like in Germany has a great artisan system of education. Like, not everybody needs to go to a 4-year university, right? And they put primacy on that, right? The Chinese put primacy on that. We do not, right? And
this is a big thing that people, like, they say, oh, we need to bring this stuff back to the United States. That ship is gone, right? And all right, here's kind of a breakdown of all the
reasons. Made that decision not to do it, right?
Our workforce is too expensive and underskilled, and we don't have state-of-the-art factories, and it would take too long. Those three things are a trifecta of why you should not get into that industry. For me to pay someone $15 an hour, where in China I can only have to pay them $2 an hour if they're really, really, really good for the most part. They're very skilled. They've got state-of-the-art factories. So we can't compete. And our people here, because we became such a consumer, that we expect a certain lifestyle, and therefore that raises all the prices. If it's not just raising of the minimum wage, right? That is I hate any. I don't like unions. I don't like anyone free negotiating. My
wage. I've never worked for minimum wage in my life, and I don't think anyone really needs to. If you're skilled, like, you might do it for a couple of months and you're like, hey, look, I'm really good. Even if it happens to be in fast food, if you're not doing a lot of waste, the managers there are going to see that. They're going to want to pay you a little bit more because you're saving money, because you're not having to throw out food because you didn't do it correctly, or which happens quite often. There's a lot of food that's just gets thrown away in fast food because it can only stay on the stove for so long, and in the drawers, all that kind of stuff. So if you're good, you're gonna get paid. We have too many people fighting this battle of, well, and they're like all like crabs in a crab pot. And even though you're a Virginian, so you can at least appreciate a little bit of a blue crab, but we never have to put a lid on the crab pot in Maryland, because as soon as one crab starts to escape, all the rest of them pull them right back down. That's the discussion of minimum wage. We're trying, instead of going, here we have the two different types of people. Instead of going, hey, how can I figure out how to make these people better? We're trying to pull everyone else down. And that to me is just losing. How about we do some things to get a better overall, as you just mentioned, artisan-like craft thing. Not everyone needs to go to college. You can make really good money right now if you're a welder. Really good money.
Yes. Here's the thing, like, I look at like entry-level code guys. The dudes that are basically banging out the base code for most everything we build or use in America that requires some level of software. That's the blue-collar job of the 21st century. Yeah. Right? You'll be able to feed your family. You'll be able to send your kids to college. You'll be able to buy a new car when you want and have a decent home. You're not going to be a bazillionaire, but you're also never going to want for the basics in life that you need. And you have the opportunity, if that's what you choose, to continue to educate yourself. And the great thing, especially in technology, is, do I have to do that in a classroom at a university? No. All right. And I think those are, as we pile deeper into the 21st century, I think when we talk about university education and things like that, a good portion of it is parents and what they transpose onto their kids about, hey, you have to do this, you have to do that. You know what I have to do? I have to be a decent human being, and I have to, it's that old thing, hey, when you go out at night, don't add to the population, don't subtract from the population, and don't end up in jail. Right? And if you're doing that, why do I need to do X, Y, and Z? Right? And this, how many degrees today are actually worth the money you're spending on them, right? Against what your future earnings are.
Not many.
Right. And if you answer that question, when you as a student or as a parent trying to help your children, as a function of what it costs against your potential future earnings, why am I doing what I'm doing? Right? Like when we've talked about you going to get an MBA, like you were very specific and like, hey, this cost me X and I'm going to get Y. Right. And so everybody's like, oh, don't take out loans. Debt's not bad, right? Using debt for things that aren't going to give you a return is bad. But using debt to facilitate greatness is a different animal, right? And so even in the US, like we generate debt all the time, right? It gets crazy how much we're generating. What are we generating it for? Right? What's the ROI on the debt that we're accumulating? And if we can't answer that correctly, right? Because I always like the word like, oh, we're going to invest in this, we're going to invest in that. Like the government doesn't invest in anything; they spend money, right? And largely today, I don't think very many people would disagree with this. They spend money to stay elected, right? Or in the attempt to stay elected, right? Because we're just now we don't want to tell everybody that, hey, what you're doing isn't in keeping within the highest traditions of not being a miscreant in society, right? And this, again, you said it before. It's like, hey, I don't want somebody to pre-negotiate my value, right? And that's largely when you accumulate debt in your personal life to a great extent, and certainly in the government, you're already pre-negotiating your value because you put yourself behind the 8 ball.
All very true, and that's I mean that's just some of the problems that here in the United States, and they're solvable problems. It's just that no one is raising their hand saying, "This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do." Not just want. This is what I'm going to do.
Right.
It's so much easier to pass the blame on the something and someone else, right? Car manufacturer. All right, hey, we knew we were going to need these chips, right? But and I'm perfectly fine with doing just in time delivery on the supply chain, no problem. But you should have multiple sources then.
Right.
Don't if you're too heavily reliant on one supplier, then it's not a matter of if you're going to fail, it's a matter of when.
Right.
All of these companies around this country and the world over reliance on China. Now I don't know I'm willing to bet that other countries aren't having this supply chain issue like what we are. I don't think China just stopped making stuff during COVID. I mean, they probably did for a short while, but very short, and then all their people went and got back to work. Now I don't know this to be true or not, but that's what I believe with no facts. It's just a hunch. So I bet that these other countries are getting the stuff that they need. I mean, BMW doesn't seem to have a problem keep making cars. Neither does Mercedes or Toyota or Lexus. Their problem is Mercedes does put the stuff together here in the U.S. Their problem is they can't get the cars into the United States.
Right.
Because those are the ones that are on the boats, but they're still making them. Like for the Lexus that I just got, I had to wait a month for it.
Okay.
I was like, all right, I don't have a big, huge, timeline. All right, fine. I got to wait a month. I mean, I got it in December, but they're like, okay, they could track it. All right, we know that it's on this boat, and based on this, you're going to get it sometime in December. I'm like, okay. They're like, or you could take the one that we have here right now. I'm like, no, I don't want the one that you have. I want this one. What do you got coming in? And now the only thing for me is that you're not. Well, there's not a whole lot of room for negotiation. So you're not. The days right now, and it might be like this for a while. These dealerships, and therefore are going to be making a lot more money, and we're going to be spending a lot more. Our wages are not increasing at a rate that is commensurate with the new cost of goods.
Right.
Because hey, I could have bought that $30,000 car. The MSRP on that $30,000 car I used to be able to get. Hey, I could get $4,000 off that. Not anymore. So that just means that costs you more.
Depending on the model, you actually might be paying a premium to drive it off the lot.
Yeah, you might be paying higher than the MSRP. Everything is more expensive at the moment, and wages themselves aren't increasing at the same rate. So something's going to break, and I think something's going to break in a very, very bad way, and sooner than later. I think it's not sustainable. Or which I actually think this could be even a good thing. The aspect of being able to work remotely, you're going to see, I think, a lot of the people that live on the coasts are going to start coming to the Midwest, because they're starting to see, wait a minute, why am I spending all of this money for this little bit of space when I can have 5 times more space and pay half the cost, and I can still do the exact same job. I think more, and that trend is going to continue to happen. For CEOs that are out there, for CEOs that say you better come into the office or go find another job, well, people are going to do that. your competitors will take them. If they're top talent, unless you're actually doing
Yeah,
a
no doubt.
manufacturing job where your stuff is physically here. But if you're in accounting, you're in finance, you're in technology, you don't need to be in an office. The cost per square foot is high. Why pay for it?
Right.
So many reasons.
I think it was either REI or Patagonia. I think it was REI. In 19, they had built this brand new, completely eco-friendly headquarters somewhere out in the West Coast, and COVID hit, and they never moved in. They ended up selling the office space to somebody else. They're like, well, we've proven that even running a retail business, people in the warehouse that are fulfilling orders need to be there, but largely the rest of the folks don't, and they basically abandoned this concept of having this brand new, great, eco-friendly facility out in the woods somewhere as part of their brand statement.
Yeah. And it's even more eco-friendly not having the building at all.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And this is
How do I cut my carbon footprint down? I don't have a building.
Right.
Yeah,
it's there. And that's where people are gonna they're gonna.
I mean,
that's
in
the
Ann
only
Arbor,
way-
like our facility now, we're getting ready to grab. Oh,
your facility's getting ready to what?
we're going to grab, like, we have almost all of one building in an industrial park, and we're going to grab pretty much not quite the rest of it, but almost all of it here. And it's the price per square foot is dirt cheap compared to being on the East Coast, and even like being in Virginia, like it's not like being up in the Beltway in Northern Virginia where things are really out of control expensive. I mean, but even like down in Virginia Beach or in Stoney's, like, he's correct. He's advocating for Danville, Virginia, because they're in this transition from being a textile, former textile manufacturer into other businesses. And even something like that, where they want to give you tax credits, they want to give you everything. Overall, it's not as inexpensive as what I'm doing here in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And this is why I think you're going to see a lot more of these people going to the Midwest.
Yeah, no
which
doubt.
is great. I mean, it's great for me. That's what I want. I mean, that's why I'm out this way, because
Right.
I can do more.
Think about the barriers to entry that you would have had starting the whiskey company in Maryland as opposed to Indiana.
I would have had to. The regulations wouldn't have been the problem. It would have been like I would have had to go to like the Eastern Shore, which I still wouldn't have gotten the space. I would still have paid double, even if I was on the Eastern Shore.
At least double, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's financial. So my favorite sushi chef, he had grown up in making sushi in Baltimore, and he ended up coming to Virginia because the financial barrier to entry to get a restaurant off the ground was massive, right? And I mean, here's the thing. By the way, if there's any good sushi chefs, come to Ann Arbor. There's no good sushi here. By the way, like, you can make a name for yourself really easy here, right? But I think when you start talking about the Midwest, like in Kansas right now, they're trying to attract tech companies, and they call Congressman Yoder is from I think it's a Kansas 3rd, really articulate spokesman on technology. I could be wrong, but I think he's got some computer science or computer engineering degree, some technical degree, and then he's went to law school. But they've kind of coined the phrase the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Googles of the world and stuff start looking at that, because hey, I can pay somebody 20% less than they're making in California to live in Kansas, and they still can buy 300% more than what they were buying when they were in San Francisco.
Well, I don't see people. I don't see companies paying people less.
But you know what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're going to pay people less, but even if they were like to use that value judgment and go, well, the cost of living there is zero, I'm still going to pay you a lot more than the base rate, but it's not going to quite be the premium of somebody that's living in San Francisco.
Right. I think because where I think the companies are going to save their money is going to be on their cost per square foot of having those buildings.
I agree with that.
And I think now because I have to, for me to hire a software developer, I mean, I'm competing with everyone in the country. So
Oh yeah, no doubt.
if I pay them, an Indiana rate, but I mean, the other company is going to pay them California rate. And I think companies that start going, well, because you're choosing to move, I'm going to pay you less. Well, am I still doing the same job? If the answer is yes, then
Right.
I'm not taking less for that. This is what I'm going to do, or I'll go find another job. There's plenty of companies that will hire. Like when you're in, this is the fun. If you work in technology, it's already hard enough to get new people, and it's even harder to retain good people. So
I agree.
You better, if you're going to start saying, well, I'm gonna cut your pay, guess what? You just lost that person because they'll have a job tomorrow. Yeah. Like just take a look in the on LinkedIn or any of the job sites. There's millions of people looking for anyone in
open
tech.
to work, right? Use the LinkedIn phrase, open to work. I think as we move forward, we drive deeper in the 21st century. Your employment is less about geography and more about contribution margin.
Yeah.
All right. You're valuing and judging people on that, right? And I think that's a good thing, right? I mean, if there's something to be said for being in office space and have certain collaborative aspects, do we need to do that all the time?
No, not anymore. Not anymore.
No.
Well, my friend, before this network cuts out again, gotta get over to the distillery, start cleaning some stuff up, and hopefully by next Sunday I'll actually I'll have time this week to actually get this technology working. So
awesome, my friend. Have a great day.
All right, everyone, take care.